Since the dawn of civilization, people have been fascinated with the concept of power. This idea can be traced back to the origins of Mesopotamian legend Gilgamesh, remembered in stories for his superhuman strength and pursuit of immortality. And the trend doesn't really end there. The founding of the Olympics, the construction of the Colosseum, and the waging of countless wars. For thousands of years, humans have been obsessed with the notion of power, supremacy, and domination. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, as it turns out, Magic players also crave power, perhaps more so than anyone else. Now I know what you're about to say, Pauper player Jim. I don't like playing busted cards. Threeben Inspector and Fairy Seer are perfectly fine. And while Threeben Inspector is totally gas, let's be honest with ourselves, Jim. The only reason you're playing Pauper is because you're living in your mom's basement without $100 to your name. But what if there was nothing holding you back? No money restriction, no ban list restriction. How would you go about creating the most powerful deck in all of Magic's history? Well, today I'm here to show you. In this video, I'll be showcasing two decks with the ability to trivially win the game on turn 1, even after multiple mulligans. Every card in Magic's history will be allowed and can be played as a 4 of. For the first deck, we're working with about 40 artifacts. This deck list is pure power, almost literally in that power 9 are mostly present as 4 ofs, but also because you won't really see defensive cards like Force of Will, Bale of Summer, or Defense Grid. The objective here is 100% offense. Perhaps most notable is that the deck only runs 3 lands, all copies of Tolarian Academy. Not bad alongside a deck that's 2/3 artifacts. But what if I told you there existed a card more powerful than all of the power 9? That's right. It's Blacker Lotus, an outrageously broken card that can only be used a single time, but today we'll surely put it to good use. The way the deck actually wins is with Aetherflux Reservoir, a card that lets you win with life gain, plus the ability to erase an opponent from existence for the price of 50 life is cool too, I guess. The Aetherflux Death Laser can be tutored into play with 4 copies of Tinker, a completely unfair way to cheat out multiple disgusting artifacts, perhaps most notably that of Bolas's Citadel, a card that works pretty well with Aetherflux when your deck only has 3 lands. 3 copies of Future Sight serve as strong alternatives to Bolas's Citadel, more or less reading 5 mana, win the game. The last cards in the deck are 4 copies of Ancestral Recall because, duh, 4 copies of Paradoxical Outcome because, again, 40 artifacts, the majority of which are free to play. Then you have 4 Demonic Tutor, which can grab Blacker Lotus in a pinch, or Tinker to just win the game. The final 2 cards are copies of Thoughtcast, which could just be called 2/3 of Ancestral Recall, and that's good enough. Here's the full deck list for reference before we move on. The final deck of the day won't be a shocker to many, it's Storm. So how do we win? Tendrils of Agony, of course. Cast 9 spells for Storm, then Tendrils for 20 damage. Once again, much of the makeup of this deck consists of the power 9, or 10 if you include Blacker Lotus. But there's another hidden gem we'll be making use of today. Since we're building decks without any restrictions, we can play Contract from Below, a Wheel of Fortune effect that only applies to us and costs 3 times less mana. And actually, I just need to pause right here to note that in the pursuit of power, We are now literally signing deals with the devil to ensure a turn 1 victory. And at what cost? Oh, you know, just the slight chance that we could anti-away Tendrils of Agony, our one and only win condition, but hey, that's the price of power, baby. Anyway, while cards like Time Twister and Wheel of Fortune seem awful compared to Contract from Below, they're still easily strong enough to make the deck, as well as previous staples Ancestral Recall and Demonic Tutor. In terms of mana production, outside of Power 9 cards, the deck doesn't have as many artifacts as the first deck, but still runs Lotus Petal and Mox Opal. Dark Ritual is also included for mana alongside 9 lands, 3 Tolarian Academy, 3 City of Brass, and 3 Mana Confluence, because who cares about taking damage when the game will only last 1 turn? The last card to mention is perhaps the most important. 3 copies of Yawgmoth's Will. The card usually reads Cast Tendrils for lethal since it lets you recast Black Lotus, Lotus Petal, Mox Opal, Dark Ritual, Ancestral Recall, Wheel Effects, and Demonic Tutor. Notably, you might need to ask a judge about recasting a Blacker Lotus that's been torn to pieces. So that's a summary of 2 of the most overpowered decks that I was able to think of with no restrictions. Feel free to let me know some of the decks that you think are crazy in the comments. Can I say I wish that players had access to decks this strong? Absolutely not. While goldfishing 20 games with each deck, the only time I didn't win the game on turn 1 was the single time I anteed away Tendrils of Agony because of Contract from Below. It is almost impossible to not win the game on turn 1 with these decks, though. But honestly, once you realize that putting together the most broken deck ever and winning on turn 1 consistently is actually really lame, it helps you to see what it is that makes Magic so cool. Yeah, for some, the game is all about winning, but for others, it's the place where we express the things we love. Be that making a baboon tribal deck, destroying everyone's lands like a raging sociopath, or putting together YouTube videos about how broken this beautiful game really is. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more unique Magic content. Peace out, friends.